Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, completely unable to explain why they feel the way they feel. We call it depression. We have therapists for it, medication for it, support groups for it, and entire podcast industries built around talking about it, which somehow makes it worse. But here is the question nobody asks. What did ancient humans do when they felt this way? Because they did feel this way, that much is certain. The human brain has not changed in 300,000 years. The exact same chemical systems that make you feel hopeless on a Tuesday morning were running in a person sitting alone by a dying fire 50,000 years ago. Same brain, same chemicals, same feeling, just no Tuesday. So did ancient humans get depressed? And if they did, what happened to them? The answer is stranger than you think, and honestly, a little embarrassing for us. What depression actually is, most people have it wrong. Depression is not sadness. Sadness makes sense. You lose someone, something goes wrong, you feel sad, and then eventually it passes. Sadness has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Depression is different. Depression is when the system gets stuck. When the brain stops producing the chemicals that make you want to get up, move, connect, and survive. When everything feels completely pointless for absolutely no reason you can identify or explain. 50,000 years ago, a person felt exactly this. They had food, they had their group, no mortgage, no inbox, no algorithm showing them a highlight reel of everyone else's life, and somehow they still felt terrible. Which tells you something important. Depression is not a modern invention. It is not caused by screens or social media or capitalism, although those things certainly are not helping. Depression is something the human brain has been capable of for as long as there have been human brains. The question is what we used to do about it. What hunter-gatherer groups actually did. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer groups that still live something close to the original human lifestyle found something that genuinely surprised them. When a member of the group became withdrawn, stopped participating, stopped eating, or stopped showing up, the group did not say, "Have you tried going for a walk?" They did not suggest journaling. They did not send a text that said, "thinking of you," and then immediately forget about it. They stopped everything. The entire group would pause their normal activities and sit with the person. Someone would tell stories. Someone else would sing. The group's healer would perform rituals, sometimes lasting hours, sometimes days. The whole band simply stopped until the person came back. Not because they were particularly enlightened, but because they were practical. A person who stops functioning in a group of 30 people is a serious problem. You cannot hunt effectively when you are designed to hunt with 30 and one of them have disappeared into themselves. You cannot afford to lose anyone because everyone is needed. So the group treated a psychological crisis the same way they treated a broken leg. You stop, you fix it, you move on together. We replaced that with a 6-week waiting list. Depression as a feature, not a bug. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. Some scientists think that depression, in its original form, was not a malfunction at all. A researcher named Edward Hagen proposed something controversial in 1999. He argued that depression, at least in its ancient form, was not the brain breaking down. It was the brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Consider the situation. You are part of a hunter-gatherer band of 30 people. Someone in your group is exploiting you, taking more than their share, ignoring your contributions, and making your life significantly worse. And you cannot leave. The forest is full of things that want to eat you. You cannot fight back alone because they have allies, and you do not. So what does your brain do? It shuts down, it withdraws, it stops cooperating, it makes you visibly miserable, deliberately. It turns you into a problem the group is forced to solve. Because a person who stops functioning forces a renegotiation. It forces the group to pay attention and forces change. Depression as a negotiation strategy, not a bug, a feature. And before you dismiss that as too convenient, it worked for 290,000 years because the group could not afford to ignore you. You were not replaceable. Every single person mattered. Around 10,000 years ago, humans started farming, and everything changed. Farming meant staying in one place. Staying in one place meant larger groups. Larger groups meant hundreds of people. then thousands, then cities with millions, and suddenly you were replaceable. The strategy that worked for 290,000 years stopped working almost overnight. The withdrawal that used to force the group to stop and listen now just meant you got left behind. The signal that was supposed to say, "Pay attention to me, I need help now," said this one is not pulling their weight. We went from a world where every person was irreplaceable to a world where you could disappear and nobody would notice for 3 weeks, and only because your rent was late. Our brains never received that update. They are still running the same program, still sending the same signal, still waiting for the group to stop and sit with them. How ancient cultures actually responded. Every hunter-gatherer society ever studied had some version of the same thing, a ritual response to psychological crisis. Not a prescription, not a diagnosis, a ritual. And these rituals had several things in common. They were communal. You did not deal with your mental state alone. The idea of going home, closing the door, and lying in the dark by yourself would have been completely alien to an ancient human. There was always someone present, whether you wanted them there or not, which honestly sounds exhausting, but is also almost exactly what depression needs. They involved movement, dance, rhythmic walking, physical activity that was not optional and was not called exercise because there was no other option. You moved because you had to, and your nervous system came along whether it wanted to or not. They used sound, drumming, singing, and chanting, not because ancient humans were particularly musical, but because rhythmic sound does something specific to the human nervous system. It synchronizes brain activity, it lowers cortisol, it releases oxytocin, it changes the chemistry of the brain in ways that are now clinically measurable. They did not know any of that, they just knew it worked. And some of them used plants. Not recreationally, or at least not primarily. The use of psychoactive plants in ancient cultures was largely therapeutic, guided, intentional, and used specifically to break psychological states that had become stuck. Modern research has confirmed that certain plant medicines can reset entrenched neural patterns in ways that took decades of pharmaceutical development to even partially replicate. A single guided session producing measurable results for months afterward. Ancient humans arrived at this tens of thousands of years ago. Clinical trials confirmed it in 2016. The part that actually matters. Ancient humans did not have a word for depression. They did not have a diagnosis, a name for it, or a framework explaining it as a chemical imbalance requiring pharmacological intervention. But they had something else. They had a response. Someone sits by the fire, withdrawn, not eating, staring at nothing. And the response is not, "Have you tried being more positive?" It is not a pamphlet. It is not a waiting list. The response is that everyone stops. They sit with you. They tell stories. They sing. They stay. Until you come back. No diagnosis required. No explanation needed. Just know we see you. We are not leaving. You matter to this group, and we will stay here until you remember that. Here is the uncomfortable conclusion. We have more words for mental health than any civilization in history. More therapists, more medication, more awareness, more content about mental wellness than ever before. And rates of depression have tripled in the last 30 years. In the most diagnosed, most medicated, most therapeutically aware generation that has ever existed. Perhaps we have been treating the symptom while quietly removing the cure. The cure was not a pill or a diagnosis or even a conversation about your childhood. It was a group of 30 people sitting down together and refusing to leave until everyone was okay. The person by that dying fire 50,000 years ago had people who would sit with them until morning. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was always enough. Perhaps the biggest difference between us and our ancient ancestors isn't how our brains work. It's the world those brains were designed for. By understanding how they faced emotional struggles, we may better understand our own. If you enjoyed this journey into our evolutionary past, hit the like button, subscribe for more documentaries about ancient humans and the hidden science of our species, and tell us in the comments what surprised you most about ancient human psychology. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.